All right, hello everyone. Welcome to Vernita Unplugged. I'm excited to start this venture with you all. And this being the first video on this channel, I am a little nervous. I have to admit that. And I have a completely different channel where I just do videos all the time, but this one is a little different. And so I'll be sharing a few things, some lessons that I've learned. And if you see me looking off, that's because I have some notes because I want to make sure I get everything covered here in this video. So there are some things that I have been noticing, and it has impacted the way that I've been moving these last few months or years, really. And it's a quiet realization. It has been very quiet, sometimes like deafening. That you heard that phrase, that silence can be deafening. It has been that way, and I want to share a few things that I learned about momentum. And I am used to moving fast, getting things done quickly, and part of my identity has been about how fast can I get things done, and always keeping the momentum and always keeping the pace. But then I realized, like, there's another side of momentum. It's almost like a dark side of momentum that a lot of people don't talk about, or at least I don't hear a lot of people talk about it. But then again, it's not like I'm searching for the dark side of momentum, right? So I've had success in a lot of different areas, and some of this is hindsight, because things that I thought were failures have actually been forms of success. And that's part of the quiet realization that I've had to come to. But I do want to talk about what happens after you've been a person that's been used to having so much success in different areas. You're used to whatever you're putting your hand to, it happens, it does well. Or even if it's not quite the outcome you expected, you can find the positive. It's like, well, that was a success. I tried it, right? But then you get to the point where it's like, but it still wasn't the results I was looking for. So you thought that you were a failure. I thought I was a failure. It's been a lot of times, especially I'll say these last 2 years, where I thought that I have failed tremendously in life. So I'm trying not to choke up. This is why I put on lashes, so I don't choke up, but we'll see how long they can stay on. But and during the quiet realization, I realized that even after a success and I didn't get the outcomes that I was expecting, that doesn't mean that I was a failure at a lot of things. So I had to redefine my relationship with failure. Now, don't get me wrong. I am used to failing at things. That wasn't the problem. I wasn't afraid of failure. It was just, I learned that it was on the outcome, on the other side of that. Could I handle the aftermath of the failure? And after the success, I said, well, now you're going to have to really look at failure differently and look at it in terms of how you've been successful because of that, and redefining what success is. Now, we've heard that a lot. A lot of people say, well, let's redefine success. It's about your health, your well-being, the time that you can spend with your family if you have one, time that you can relax and drink your coffee without rushing and things like that. And honestly, that's different for different people. But when you have a certain goal that you're going after, and you've been going after that goal, let's say for some years, and you haven't quite achieved that, when you're hearing define success differently, you're like, I don't want to hear that. I want the success of the outcome that I've been searching for. So when I'm talking about redefining what you look like, redefining failure and success, I hope this is making sense to you. I'm really focusing on the process of it and how we look at the process. And you hear that, oh, look at the journey, it's not the destination. Sometimes it is the destination sometimes, but you want to just take a step back and look at the momentum that you're taking and how you're defining success and failures and all of that while you're taking those steps. I hope that makes sense. And then, you have to understand you have to redefine your relationship with momentum. I'm not going to get too much into like my background, but one example I will give you is I wrote a book in 90 days. And I'm not saying I just wrote it. No, from concept to sending it to the publisher and letting it hit Amazon's bestsellers list, all of that was done in 90 days, right? And the momentum of that. But then it was like, you can't take that level, or I was trying to take that type of momentum and applying it into different areas, and then when I didn't get the same type of outcome or results, I thought I was failing. And so that's what I mean about redefining your relationship with momentum and how you use that transferable skill. So I wanted to give you that example. Like, one type of momentum to get you results is not the same type of momentum you need to get, some other results in your life. So as I was going through those, trying to have the same type of momentum, it took me into places I never expected, into this place of life, like foreign territory for me. And like I said, I'm used to like failing at things if something didn't work out, but in the container of what's familiar. I hope that makes sense. Like, okay, I can fail. Let's take school, for example. If I failed at a project, or like school or work, if I failed at something there, oh well, it will hurt a little bit, but then I know I can get back up and bounce back because it's comfortable. That environment is comfortable. Not the actual situation was comfortable, but the environment. So I know that I'll be okay. It wasn't a foreign area. But then you go, let's say, whether it is business or motherhood or something else that's totally out of your realm, and then you fail. It's like, oh my gosh, can I ever get back from this? So I had to learn life in terms of unfamiliar ground. And this is the crazy thing. And if you can relate to me, let me know. I am used to putting myself in uncomfortable situations. I've traveled by myself to foreign places, literally, but is different, and I want to be careful not to give you too many examples, because I don't want you to, because yours would be different from mine, right? I'm just telling you that if you're honest with yourself, you know that you're probably at this situation where I know this, I should know this, but why can't I get it, type of thing. That's what I mean about foreign territory. And then I realized that what worked, like I was talking about momentum, what worked there is not going to translate into this area. I can't build and have the same type of momentum and success as I had in one area and apply that into this new foreign territory. So it was like, if you're a US citizen and you know the laws of your country, you can't just go to another country, even though you're the same humans, same kind of daily type of things. Everyone eats, drinks, walk, all, ride, all those things that are custom, or not custom, that's quote unquote normal. But then there's that undercurrent of, we don't do things here, or things are different here. That's what I mean. And for the longest time, especially these last few years, I thought I was lost. And I'm like, okay, I've built up this whole resume of things. I've tried all these different experiences. I've felt like I've, taken on the challenge and, pushed past my comfort zone or limit line or whatever you want to say. And it's like, what's still not working? And I was like, well, since it's not working, that means I'm lost. I have no direction. Like, God, why did you bring me here? I'm lost. And that's not true. You're not lost. It was new terrain. And so as I stepped on this new terrain, I realized that I had to unlearn a lot of things. And believe it or not, unlearning is actually harder than learning. And I'm a learner. I can learn anything, especially when I'm focused. Even though I've been trying to, attempting to learn a language like for the past 2 decades, it feels like, but I honestly just haven't put my mind to it. But when I do put my mind to learning something brand new, or all of these things, I can do it. So I am a learner. But then when it's time to unlearn, it's harder, because it's like I spent all this time gathering this information, testing myself, and putting myself in these environments to make sure I was competent and capable of doing this thing. And now what life is telling me in this foreign territory is like, what you learned over there is not how we do things over here, and it's not going to serve you well. And so I was like, oh gosh, I have to reset, or go back to factory reset, and I was like, how are you going to let me go, me talking to God and to myself, how are you going to let me go through all these decades or even months of years of learning something, to now have to walk away from it, or to say, you know what, that is just not gonna serve me well right now. And that was a very challenging thing to do because I had to loosen decades of learning. And when I say decades, I mean decades of learning, because I've been so used to being polished and perfecting certain things and showing up a certain way. And it was like, that's not how we do things over here. And so I used to think that I was in this phase of reinvention. And I used to do this whole thing, a whole video series on reinvention and how reinvention is important, but something still felt off to me about that reinvention. All right, we got cut off somehow, but I'm leaving this in here because that's part of the purpose of this here video. So we're talking about reinvention, and I'll just wrap up the thought. Like I said, I was thinking reinvention, that was the season that I was in, and that's totally not true because something still felt off about what reinvention really meant. And so it was more now about recalibration, and recalibration worked for me. It's still, I'm like, okay, I can dig this. But then again, during this quiet time of reflecting, I realized that it was more of a reorientation. And reorientation is about you're getting acclimated to the surroundings you're in. But in this case, it's like you know what you need to do, but now you're just getting back familiar with those steps and process, tools, skills, whatever you want to name it. So that's all part of unlearning that I had to do, and maybe that you would have to do as well. And so momentum insight at its core is, I realized that momentum isn't neutral. Like there's different aspects of momentum, but it's not like you're just coasting. And I realized that when you force momentum, it can be very expensive. It can be very expensive as far as your time, your energy, your resources, if you keep going in a direction where you do not belong, right? And there's a time in a place where you forge through and you fight through, you break down those walls, but there's still an inner knowing of, I know I'm going in the right direction, even though it doesn't feel like I'm making progress. But then if you're honest with yourself, there's a time where you force and push and do all these things, and you're realizing you're forcing yourself. It's like you leave the car in neutral and you're forcing it uphill instead of getting in the car and cranking on the engine and pressing the gas pedal. And so that's what I mean about momentum isn't neutral. It's still going to take some effort, and you have to realize, like, there are times where you can force momentum and it can feel good. It can feel like you're on the right track. It could feel like you are, making progress and looking successful and productive, but that's not always true. And then so after these expensive lessons in all of those categories, I realized that stopping does not equal being behind. And that has been the story of my life these last few years, thinking that I was so behind, because I used to be a person to set a goal by a certain date and then hit it or exceed it, like meaning finishing it faster. And then so in this foreign territory, realizing like, that's not how it's going to go, I completely stopped doing a lot of things that, like I said, forced momentum. I was putting out all the things I needed to do, or I thought I needed to do, and I just got to the point where I had to stop. And then so in that stopping, I thought, okay, now I'm behind. Like, particular age, or once have a certain number of income, or you can put followers, or whatever the case may be. There was a sense, or sometimes there is a sense of feeling behind because you stopped something. And that's what I had to sit and realize, and that's something I want to make sure I clarify, is that sometimes you can stop and then be okay. And it's like all good, but when you're stopping and then you're feeling like you're behind because you stopped, that takes a completely different toll on your mental psyche. And I know it did for me. So I had to, part of that unlearning is realizing that because I stopped doing something does not push me further behind. Now, let me be clear. That doesn't mean you just stay there and you just kind of go with the flow. You pick yourself back up. And then when you realize you are going on the right path you're supposed to be going on, then that momentum picks up. And then and you continue to move forward. But there's a lot of things I had to release for myself, and that was part of that unlearning, that stopping doesn't mean that I'm behind. And then when I sat down and listened to myself and really got back into my Bible, even though I didn't stop doing it, but it was just with this different perspective and this different lens and this different space of quieting down when I listened differently. And that's where a lot of things opened up for me. And I was still fighting it. I was still trying to force it at certain times. But when I listened differently, I realized that everything really had changed. And remember, I talked about, unlearning decades of things. When you unlearn, you have to be okay with things are not the same anymore. And that's totally fine. And whether that's in your physical body, in your mental state, in your emotions, how you problem solve, how you approach your career or business or anything, when you unlearn, stop forcing momentum, and really notice what's happening in your quiet season, then you know that things literally change. And this is where I had to take complete ownership and accountability. And I'm usually good at that, but when you're in this foreign space, ownership, and you're like, oh man, it's my fault I got here. But then with the new perspective and that reorientation that we talked about, you realize that your ownership doesn't mean that you're just taking the blame. And I know it's like, well, I have to own it, and then that means I blame myself. But I had to learn to divorce myself from those words. And ownership doesn't mean that you are assuming blame, shame, or guilt or anything like that. It's just more clarity. And I don't mean clarity like the idol clarity, because we can have clarity as an idol. I know I did for a while, where I just need to be clear before I do that. No, that's not what I'm talking about. If you've been in this fog, and when the fog dissipates, that's the clarity I'm talking about. You look in nature. In the morning, sometimes it's a heavy, dense fog, and you can kind of make out things that are in front of you. But when it goes away, then it's clear. Now, you may not know the actual direction you're going, but you can see the pathway. So that's what I mean by clarity. Not saying that you know every possible outcome, situation, direction, every step. No, you don't. But it's just a fog lifts. And that's what I had to do when I had to assume ownership about certain things without blame. Right? The other thing I had to realize, that agency still exists. Like, I am still in control of what I need to be in control of. And I don't mean control like, the master of your universe and things like that. I am a Christian, so it's like God is in control, but then God also gives us the ability to do what we need to do. Like, this is our kingdom, this is our domain. He gives us things that we are supposed to be in control of and things that we do. So regardless of being in foreign territory, there are still things that I take ownership and I have agency to do. Like, I am in control of doing certain things, and those are the things that I need to be concerned about. And then so in realizing that and remembering also, I had to remember that, well, not remember, but I learned that learning to choose differently is grounding. And when you're so used to following one path all the time, it can feel like an invisible safety net. And you think that you are grounded because you think that net is there. But then you realize that the net is just, how do I want to say it? It's almost like it's not really there like you think it's there, right? And so when you start choosing differently, when I started choosing differently and realizing that I had the agency that I needed, then I could settle back down. I could really settle into myself and feel grounded and feel like I landed finally, right after being, all in these different kind of pulled in these different types of directions and things like that. So going back to like still being in unfamiliar territory or foreign territory, just because it felt a new, different space, I still found my center of gravity. And that's what I meant by that choosing differently was grounding. And that leads me to the next part of rules versus principles. I am a rule girl. I follow the rules. And sometimes people call me a goody two shoes because I follow the rules. But here's the thing, I follow the rules and learn the rules so I know where to break them. And that's where, like, sometimes when people have these labels of thinking that you're just a rule follower and you think that's a bad thing. Like, I used to think, like, oh, like, growing up, I was like, okay, it kept me out of trouble and everything like that. But then when you become an adult and you have these different experiences, you don't want to be I didn't want to be characterized as the goody two shoes or the ones who have to always follow the book and always follow the rules and things like that. Well, a lot of that was to my advantage because I knew how to either break the rules, skate around the rules, learn how to create new rules based on those rules. So it served me well. But then I had to get to a point and learn that rules do expire. And they expire for a reason. And in this season, I had to rely on principles instead of rules. I believe that that's the reason why the Bible is built on principles, mainly in the New Testament versus just rules like the Old Testament, right? Because rules will keep you stuck. Rules will keep you in this container, and sometimes they're meant to keep you safe, and that's all well and good. But when you're going into this recalibration or reorientation phase of your life, you understand that the rules need to be broken at times. The rules, you've outgrown them, and then when you hone on to principles, those are your guiding posts or guardrails, or what you can start testing. And principles are those things that hold true no matter what. They're not meant to be broken. They are who you are foundationally. And the good thing about principles is that you can learn new ones. You can adopt and adapt, to new ones and things like that. So even being in an unfamiliar place or foreign territory, whatever that is in your life, you can focus on principles and not so much on the rules. And that's the difference when you learn to be discerning over just compliant. And that's what I realized. A lot of rules for me, I was just being compliant, and it was easier to be compliant, honestly. But then when you focus on principles, or when I focus on principles, I realized that I can be more discerning, and that led to more being grounded, and that led to more clarity. And then that also led to me being more, I don't want to say comfortable, in a foreign, unfamiliar place, because it's kind of like, does that really go together? But I'll say it for the time being, because I can't think of a better way to say it right now. And so then, as I'm doing that and understanding the difference between rules and principles, especially in the state, I had to look at the undercurrent of purpose. And purpose can be this elusive word. And I spent years working with a lot of different people about purpose and my direction, especially after I was dealt with some blows, thinking that I was on my path. And God was like, not really. And I realized that purpose can be this, elusive term, and people are searching for it. But we know our purpose. We know what we may not know everything about it or how to accomplish it, but we have this deep sense of knowing. And I've had this deep sense of knowing, and I knew the direction I need to go, but I was still holding on to the rules, holding on to, like, I can be uncomfortable and I can fail, but as long as I fail over here in this container, and then when you're taking out of that container and drop somewhere else, then you start looking at purpose really holistically, no matter where you're placed. So if you were in education, and then you realize now you need to be in healthcare, or you were a CEO and now it's like, go be a farmer type of thing. You have to look at the bigger part of purpose. Like, what you were doing was not the purpose. You have to look at the outcomes and the results. And to me, that is how you start understanding purpose bigger, or the undercurrent of purpose. And in doing that, you realize that it's less striving. So in this season, it is less striving for me. And it's still a challenge, because like I told you, I am used to go and pump out all this stuff. And now, don't get me wrong, there's a time where you crank it up, right? But there's a difference between doing that in the flow, and then, like I said, that forced momentum. It's a difference between that and striving, and I have to do it no matter what. There's a difference. And in this season, it's also about being more aligned and having your purpose clarified more quietly. and things like that. So that's the undercurrent of purpose, is less striving, is more alignment, and is making sure that your purpose and what you're doing, the impact and the outcome, it is clarified more quietly. You don't have to boast. You don't have to be like telling everybody, look at me, look at me. And here's the thing, sometimes no one's gonna see it. Sometimes it's not gonna be applauded. And that's what I had to really understand in this season. Like, everything is not for a show. Everything is not for social media. You're going to put out things, and depending on what your thing is. My thing is, of course, doing things online, but everyone's not going to look at it. You may not get all the views that you thought you were going to do, but your purpose at that time was to create whatever you're going to create, and then it will do what it's going to do, because it was a reason why you felt like you needed to create it. So that's another thing to understand about your purpose, and something that people don't talk about out loud is everything is not going to get the applause or recognition, especially being someone who's used to applause and recognition and achievement and rewards and awards and things like that. Don't get me wrong, those things are great, but just know that if you're in this different season of being recalibrated, or in a season of reorientation, and you're in a foreign territory. Here's the thing, in the foreign territory, I want to complete that thought. Here's the thing, you're going somewhere unfamiliar. No one knows you anyway, and that can be physically, that can be in your mentally, like in the space where you take yourself, that can be emotionally, that can be in your career, in your business. If you're going somewhere foreign, no one knows you anyway, but you are still obligated to show up in your purpose. And I don't want to say that abstractly, but you need to show up and do the work that you need to do, that you were created to do, regardless if no one sees it. And that can be the challenging part, but that is what is going to keep you grounded and in more alignment. And trust me, I've been doing that for the last few weeks, since the beginning of this year. Honestly, after I literally stopped, and it has felt completely different. It still feels unfamiliar, and you'll be on this journey with me as I start uncovering it. But I just wanted to make sure that was clear about purpose. And so as I wrap this up, I am moving differently, and I hope that you will stay and be a witness to that. And I would love to know how you are moving differently in this season. And I had to make sure I didn't do this out of fear. I don't know if I said that at the beginning, because the video kind of messed up a little bit, but I'm not doing this out of fear. And a lot of times, there are people who don't do things because they're afraid, and there are people who do things because they are afraid. Like, oh my God. And I was doing that. Like, fear doesn't really scare me to stop things, but I'll do a lot of things because I'm afraid of something else happening or something not happening. And that's exhausting. That is exhausting. Like, fear is a good thing, and as long as you keep moving, but you don't want it, how can I say it? You want to make sure that I'm making sure that I'm not making these changes because I'm afraid or because something didn't work out. It's just a really different time and a different season. And it's more about being intentional instead of, like I said, the fear. No, I'm intentionally choosing this direction. And honestly, you feel that in your body. I literally just felt that in my nervous system, like, whew. Even though I've been doing this for a few weeks now, I literally just felt that again by saying it out loud. And so if momentum feels heavy for you in this season, stop. Stop forcing it. Stop striving. Stop pushing it. Stop. And breathe. And this is not like quiet quitting either. This is literally stop doing what you're doing and allow yourself to reorientate yourself with what's happening, because you can get caught up in the striving. And here's the thing, things can be, I said in closing, but things could look so good. You could be productive, you can be producing, you could be doing all the things and it still look successful, but you have to check into, I say this a lot, your star player. And if it feels heavy, like I'm not saying that you're never going to get tired of things, because that's how the human body works, but you know the difference between, oh, I'm just tired today, versus something like, this is a heavy thing in my spirit. When you feel that, stop and know that you're not behind, and realizing that if you when you stop, you'll realize you are right on time for something. You are right on time for where you need to be. And you could be just a little bit early. I know in this day of everything being so fast paced, it's hard to believe, but you could be just a little bit early if you stopped. So I'm going to leave that right here. Welcome to Vernita Unplugged. I hope to see more of you in the future, and thank you so much for listening to me and watching. And I would just love to hear your comments, thoughts, feedback, anything that you want me to elaborate on, because this would be a different approach, and I'm excited about this journey and this channel. And until next time, I'll see you soon.